This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Today at T-Mobile, I'm joined by a special co-anchor.
What up, everybody? It's your boy, Big Snoop Deal Double G.
Snoop, where can people go to find great deals?
Head to T-Mobile.com and get 4 iPhone 16s with Apple Intelligence on us, plus 4 lines for $25.
That's quite a deal, Snoop. And when you switch to T-Mobile, you can save versus the other big guys' comparable plans plus streaming.
Respect. When we up out of here.
See how you can save on wireless and streaming versus the other big guys at T-Mobile.com/switch. Apple Intelligence requires iOS 18.1 or later.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Wonder-working power in the precious...
Incredible as they seem, are not the results of mass hysteria.
You may wish to adjust the dial. You're currently tuned into the wrong station. Primary source number 11. Delivered before a House subcommittee as part of the extended Haster-Coburg sedition hearings, the infamous Horsekiller testimony is here presented without comment by the editors of this collection. As ever, please be sure to assess this primary source for bias, using the reference questions provided at the beginning of this chapter. When I was little, I lived down the road from a ranch where they raised horses for film shoots and racing and things like that. That farm was more of a home to me than my real home. It was where my heart lived. Whenever things were bad at home or at school, and they usually were, I'd walk the 1.5 miles down the dirt road to where the ranch fence ended under a handful of pine trees. I'd climb up onto the fence and sit there, watching the horses run past. Even though they were inside that fence, they were so free. After a time, I got to know them, their various personalities. Some of them were fierce, and some of them were mischievous, and some of them were calm. But they got to know me, too, and all of them liked me, even though I was poor and I only rarely had a bit of carrot or apple to offer them. I think they liked me because I saw them for what they really were. They were like me. One of the horses was named Umber. She was dark as rich earth, sleek as water. She ran light as air, and she could sense when you were down. Anytime I had a bad day and I walked down to the fence, she'd be right there, waiting. She knew. That horse was a person. She had personhood, more wisdom and compassion, more humanity than most human beings I've ever met. One time, and I never told anyone this, but one time when things were especially bad at home, it was close to the end of the year, and it was cold. But Umber folded herself up in the long grass and let me lean against her, shivering through the small hours of the morning. Maybe I wouldn't have died without her, but it meant a lot to have someone to share that night with, to be shown some kindness and comfort. Not long after that, I was sitting on the fence after school, and a man came walking down from the direction of the farmhouse, on the inside of the fence. I knew right away he was law enforcement, even though he didn't wear a uniform. Something about the way he stood, the boxy, semi-official cut of his jeans and faded denim shirt. He looked like Kevin Costner in that old show about the ranch. Cowboy hat, dark plaid jacket. "Afternoon, son." I nodded at him. "My name is Deputy Sheriff Ashton Cody. I handle Bill 23 cases for the local department." He showed me his badge and ID, but I already believed he was who he said he was. I'd been afraid someone like him might show up. "Would you mind telling me a little bit about your relationship with this horse?" Umber was leaned up at the fence beside me. She was eating a handful of oats from my palm. I don't know what you're talking about, sir." He winced. "Oh, see, I think you do. Why else are you here all the time, son?" "I just like to come here and look at the horses," I told him. "I think it's an inspiring sight." The deputy hung his head, put his hands on his hips, pushing back the edges of his jacket, a revolver on his right side. He took a half step forward, shaking his head. See, that's not what I've heard. Folks around here." He jerked his head back toward the farmhouse, over his shoulder toward town. "They say you formed an attachment with this one particular animal. Humber. Is that right?" I knew better than to correct him. Just said nothing. "Now, son, I want to hear it from you. These allegations, are they correct?" "No, sir, they are not." "Oh, boy." Cody looked to the heavens. "Son, that was a wrong thing to say. See, now you called into question the honesty of my witnesses, several of whom are prominent members of this community. And you know lying to a police officer is a prisonable offense. So I'm going to give you another chance to shoot straight with me. Because otherwise you're going to open one bad book, son. One very bad book." I said nothing. Now, he looked me in the eyes as he fished through his pockets for a little spiral pad and a golf pencil. "Let's begin again. Do you, or do you not, have a special attachment to this horse?" Beside me, Umber just looked up calmly, and then bent her head to crop the autumn grass. "Yes, I do." "Good boy," said Cody. "Now, would you tell me the nature of your relationship with this animal?" I felt queasy. I knew I was being accused of something, but I didn't know exactly what. The implication of everything he'd said was that I was involved in something disgusting or wrong. For all that, I'd been afraid of a Bill 23 officer showing up. I hadn't been able to articulate to myself why. But I did feel caught. Every time I came to see Umber, there was this faint sense of transgression. But for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what I could possibly be doing wrong. And now the deputy was here, and I still didn't know. It all felt surreal. "I don't know," I told him. "We're friends or something. I come out here and walk along the fence, and she walks with me. Sometimes I jump over and feed her bits of carrot and sugar, and we just... I don't know, hang out." "Mm-hmm." Cody scrawled at his notepad, slowly flipped the page, and scrawled some more. "Would you say this horse is an emotional support for you?" I didn't know how to answer that. It seemed like something the school therapist would ask, not a state deputy. "Simple yes or no will do," he said. "Not really." He looked over the pad at me. "Son, let me remind you what we just talked about a moment ago. Be straight with me." "All right," I said. Fine. Yeah, she's... The horse is... Umber. I folded my hands in my lap. She's the only real friend I have. Feels like she's the only one in the world who really cares about me. Cody looked at me sadly for a moment, then looked down to the pad, scribbled for a few moments. Then, with an air of finality, flipped the spiral notebook shut, tucked it away in his jacket chest pocket. Well then. Good job, son. You did the right thing. Can't have been easy to admit all that. Admit it? I was starting to feel desperate. Have I committed some sort of crime? Well, no. Not in so many words, you haven't. Cody leaned at the fence a few yards away from me, looking out at the yellow hills. He took off his hat and ran a hand through his sandy hair and sighed like a father about to give his boy a talk. But what you been doing, well, it ain't really proper neither. He spread out his hands, appealing to me. You know, we're out here trying to look out for the next generation. Make sure they're coming up right. Because this country's going to need good men and women. These are tough times, and they're going to get more tough before they get back to being easy. You get me? Okay, but... He held out his hand before I could finish my thought. Respect your elders, kid, and let 'em finish. He gestured to Umber, continuing his thought. Now, you and this horse, you've been forming what the law now considers an indecent attachment. And I think you know what I mean by that, don't you? You've been treating this animal like a human being, and that's a way of behavior that runs counter to the natural order of things. You know, the Constitution makes it very clear that God made man in his image. But even setting all that aside, he shook his head. Son, it's soft behavior. It's not what we expect from young men in this part of the world. It's not the behavior of the kind of man we're trying to make. Kind this country needs in hard times. He looked at me, and there was nothing but compassion and disappointment in those unyielding blue eyes of his. Son, it's the kind of behavior that leads nowhere but to other kinds of deviant behavior. Transism, homosexuality. Trust me, I've seen it all happen before. He didn't say this with any malice or anger, just said it as if it was a sad truth and he was offering a way back up to the light. I folded my arms and looked away. I just feed her an apple from time to time. He gave a little laugh of disbelief and raised his hands in a shrug. It's not the apple, son. It's the attitude. Now, you can disbelieve it if you like, but the science is on my side. There's been numerous studies with the results all clear. Soft societies breed womanish men, and you only need to look at New York and California to see that in effect. And I don't have a problem with that. Let them go live there. But it's not what we're trying to do here. At this point, I was humiliated, red in the face, staring at the ground. I take back what I said, I told him. It's nothing like that. The horse is just a horse. I just come out here to be alone. But Cody shook his head and slowly pushed away from the fence, resting one hand on his hip again to show the 6-gun at his waist. Son, it's too late for that. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not calling you a homosexual or anything insulting. I'm not here to make you feel bad. What I'm saying is that this kind of behavior leaves you at risk of becoming homosexualized. And that's what the sheriff's department has sent me here to set right. To intervene before things get too far. To nip any kind of deviant anything right here in the bud. And as for this horse, well, it's clear to any reasonable person what's at stake. All this time, Umber had just been standing with the breeze in her mane, slowly cropping grass, peaceful as the autumn breeze. Cody drew the gun. No, but as I jumped down from the fence, Cody wheeled the wagon calmly in my direction. Easy, boy. I'd calm down if I was you. You know I'm well within my legal rights to wing you if it comes to it. Please don't do this. I wasn't crying. I was using everything in my power to keep from crying. I knew crying was the furthest thing from what would convince him. But my face was red, and in spite of all I could do, a bead of scalding water gathered at the corner of my eye. Please don't shoot her. It's nothing to do with her. I'm the one that's wrong. It's not her fault. He just looked at me for a long moment. Infinite patience and sadness on his face. Son, I wish it worked like that. I really do. He wheeled the gun toward Umber's head. And I wish it wasn't my job to make you see this. But if you're going to turn out right, then somebody has to step in. That somebody is me. Please, no. But I was helpless. He thumbed the hammer back. Umber raised her head at last and looked him in the eye. He hesitated. Even he hesitated for a moment. Her eyes, so human, the power of her soul so great. She wasn't afraid, even as she stared down that steel barrel, knowing I am completely certain exactly what the weapon meant. Knowing. In that moment, I learned so much about how to be human. Then he pulled the trigger and blew her head away. Primary source number 12. Recovered from a cache of partially destroyed Department of Homeland Security documents, the following internal memo regarding Immigration and Customs Enforcement Grace sites is here presented without comment by the editors of this collection. As ever, please be sure to assess this primary source for bias, using the reference questions provided at the beginning of this chapter. The Wrong Station is made possible with the generous support of our listeners on Patreon. Visit today at patreon.com/thewrongstation. You can also support us by leaving a rating and review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever it is you tune into the show. This surprise episode, Horsekiller, was written by Alexander Saxton and performed by Anthony Botello. Thank you to Ryan Kelly, Melissa Eisner, Brantley Drapp, Brian Savage, Sean Twigg, Chaos Elephant, Daniel T. Gunning, and Kathleen Donahue for helping us keep the lights, well, off. The Wrong Station is co-produced by Alexander Saxton, Anthony Botello, and Jacob Duarte Spiel, with music composed and performed by Alon Citron and arranged for the viola and performed by Viola Schmidt. You can follow The Wrong Station on social media at The Wrong Station and email us at thewrongstation@gmail.com. And until next time, thank you for listening.